The Carnegie Town Hall. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and a little somber occasion to start out with. I would like to invite Mr. Jeffrey Schmidt to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As everybody pretty much understands and knows, we lost a visionary this week, and Steve Metley passed away on Monday evening. Steve was the planning director. He came to City of Sioux Falls as the planning director back in 1974, and he retired in 2005. A lot of us were able to work with him. He really changed the City of Sioux Falls for a lot of us. He created a lot of opportunities for the City of Sioux Falls. The visions and the master plans that he created will stand the test of time for the City of Sioux Falls. His downtown plan, his parks master plan, the Falls Park plan, the comprehensive plan, all those things are things that we continue to sit there and talk about, that if you have those visions and are able to move them forward, it's amazing to think of what he was able to accomplish in his short lifespan. So again, we just want to take a quick moment to think and remember him. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Steve will be missed. Again, good evening, everyone. Just to reiterate what was mentioned in kind of the introductory video, I would like to emphasize everyone to please silence your cell phones, just as a courtesy. And trust me, it's really embarrassing when one of ours goes off up here, so we are really cautious about that. Also, as we go through the agenda items tonight, to have sufficient time to hear from everyone on pertinent matters, when you come forward to the podium, please identify yourself and state your address for the record, and limit your comments to 5 minutes, and bring forward new testimony that has not been already mentioned to the group. That would be greatly appreciated. So, at this time, we would like to approve the consent agenda. Denise, you're on.
All right, Mr. Chair. Item 1, approval of January 4th, 2017 minutes of regular meeting. Item 2, January plats. Item 3, 5397, 2016. Rezone from the S1 General Institutional District to the C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar District for allowed forms located at the northeast corner of East 3rd Street and North Cliff Avenue. Item 4, 6183, 2016. Rezone from the C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar District to the I1 Light Industrial District for allowed forms located at 1500 and 1504 North Cliff Avenue. Item 5, 6216, 2017. Rezone from the C3 Commercial Community District to the C4 Commercial Regional District for allowed forms located north of I-229 and east of South Grange Avenue. Item 6, 6220, 2017, rezone from the C3 Commercial Community District to the O Office District for allowed forms located south of West 69th Street and east of South Connie Avenue. Item 7, 6115, 2016, preliminary subdivision plan for Aspen Heights addition located at north of West Madison Street and west of North Valley View Road.
Thank you, Denise. Are there any objections from the audience for any of the consent agenda items listed, numbers 1 through 7? Seeing none, is there any objection from the commissioners?
Did you read 6? It's being withdrawn.
Just a reminder that item 6 is withdrawn.
Item number 6 is withdrawn. Do we need to vote on that, or it's just as a matter of record?
Correct.
Which is it? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
Mr. Chair, you'll need to vote
Okay.
to withdraw that item.
Look for commission action on that.
Move to remove item 6.
Thank you.
Oh,
We have a
actually,
motion
Mr. Chair, you'll need a motion to approve the agenda first, please.
Very good.
Move to approve the agenda.
Very good.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion besides the amendment to withdraw item number 6?
Mr. Chair, I'll make that amendment to withdraw item number 6.
Second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? First vote will be to amend withdrawing item number 6. All in favor signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed, same sign. The consent agenda is amended as such, and now we'll vote on the agenda as a whole. All those, any discussion on that? All those in favor of the consent agenda as amended signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, same sign. The consent agenda is approved. So if anyone here was here for items number 1 through 7, absent number 6, you're free to go. And we'll move on to the regular agenda. I'll look for commission action to approve the regular agenda.
Move for approval of regular agenda.
Second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the regular agenda item signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, same sign.
Item 8, 5996, 2016, rezone from AG Agriculture District to the RA2 Apartment Residential Moderate Density District for allowed forms located at the southeast corner of West 85th Street and South Brett Avenue.
We'll take a pregnated pause while we get the PowerPoint up on the screen. Back up. 8. Yep. Nope. Yep, thank you. And then back. Get it. Nope.
Bear with us, everyone. We're all learning as we.
Yeah. We can go from there. Yeah. Just go from there, Diane. Okay. Thanks, Denise. Okay. Jeffrey Schmidt, representing planning staff on this item and items this evening. This first item is rezoning from Ag to RA2. It's a 5-acre site in the southwest part of town. It's currently vacant, and the applicant plans to construct 3 buildings of 32 units each. The site shown here is to the north with 85th Street. On the west side is Brett, and you can see the 3 buildings with the parking lot in between, the 2 parking lots, and the access points being to the west. 85th Street is identified as the arterial street. The land use and comprehensive plan analysis states that the zoning meets Sioux Falls comprehensive plan. Based upon number 1, it should accommodate greater concentration of housing in dense pedestrian or urban neighborhoods having convenient access to transit, employment, and commercial centers. And 5, basing it on the massing should be diminished by varying of roof lines and scale. We do have a necessary transportation network and a transition along 85th Street and Brett, which would help with existing multifamily uses to the west and the single-family uses to the south. The building is 2 and 3 stories with a 3rd level of a pitched roof. With the change of zone at 85th and Brett, the comprehensive plan again and the associated zoning ordinances both continue to work to address these issues. When this went to Planning Commission in December and then went forward to City Council handed this back to Planning Commission to review the site as well as to consider setback issues. Apartments next to single family is really the issue that we continue to address here, and this is not a unique issue to 85th and Brett. This is something that's been addressed throughout numerous locations in Sioux Falls. Shape Places back in 2014 and 2015, as well as even before that, understood the issues and concerns that are going to be addressed this evening. There are mitigation addressed with these issues, and there's even more things that are being taken place to mitigate with multifamily, even more so than between single family and single family, which I'll try to explain. With multifamily transition options, there are encouraged to have multifamily buildings to reduce their apparent scale. Again, to have the upper levels to have more pitched roofs and to have more scale and massing than a typical single family development. With landscape buffers, they're required to have landscaping buffers between the adjacent land uses, and they're required to have lighting transitions. With the issue about street traffic, this is something that again continues to come up with a lot of the projects in and around the City of Sioux Falls. I've tried to highlight here in orange the 5-acre site. Typical developments take place, and this one's in the southwest. Traffic flow will be going north and east. I've tried to highlight that here in green, whereas if they did go south and east, you can see as I highlighted in red, that's really not a normal traffic issue. It wouldn't typically for people to be able to go south and east. There's no real reason to go south and east. They would more likely go straight north or north and east. Engineering design standards are what I've placed over on the left-hand side. A collector street like Brett shall handle 5,000 vehicles a day. We'll hear typically that traffic's going to be increased. It will be increased because there's not near 5,000 vehicles out there today. But it shall have 5, because it collects all the traffic from the entire neighborhood onto Brett. Now, West 85th Street shall have about 25,000 vehicles a day. That's what it's built for. It currently has 1,100 vehicles a day. So again, it should pick up and be built out as land develops. So you'll hear that there's going to be more traffic. That's the expectation with all these streets, not only here, but throughout the City of Sioux Falls. With drainage, drainage is an issue that we continue to look at and addressing. The nice thing about apartments is they do not have basements. When you have basements, the deeper they go, they change the spring-fed water patterns, and that affects how other people with basements get flooded out or how they have water problems. Apartments are slab and grade. Also, with this site plan, the detention areas to the north. Apartment areas have to have on-site detention. Single-family homes don't have to detain on their property themselves, but they detain within their subdivision. Have to detain the water on their site. The other thing that was interesting as we reviewed this more, West 88th Street is sitting at 1,538 feet. 85th Street's down at 1,524. There's about a 14-foot drop between 88th Street and 85th Street. Setbacks and buffer yards are really the things that we were looking at, again, moving forward to tonight's agenda item. Now, a typical single family to single family, if that's what would be going on this site, you would have a 5-foot side yard and a 25-foot rear yard between properties. Townhomes are 7 and 25. Apartments are 10-foot side yards and 10-foot side yards. Then the buffer yards are how much landscaping they have to be required to put in. We do not require buffer yards with single family to single family. We require buffer yards between townhomes and single family, and we require buffer yards between townhomes and apartments and single family. So again, with apartments, you get generally more of a setback and you get more buffer yards than with single family development. For example, with buffer yards, this one, if you did apartments on this site, you'd have to meet, you're required to have a level B buffer yard. So you'd have 15 feet of additional landscaping, a 2-foot berm, and 30 units of landscaping. We count the number of units by the size of the trees, the type of trees, and then that's over 100 feet. So for every 100 feet, you get 30 units, and by the scale and massing of those trees. Then again, one of the things that we've placed in the new zoning ordinance is in the past, prior to really the comprehensive plan in 2010 and the zoning ordinance in 2014, there wasn't any compatibility. You didn't know how to regulate zoning. But now we look at the compatibility. With apartments to single family, we say there is a potential incompatibility. However, the way you address that is that new zoning districts may have potential conflicts. They may, but they shall be remedied or minimized through project design. Traffic, parking, and other external effects should be directed away. If you direct them towards, then you should deny. If they direct it away, you should approve. Then at the same time, the effects from the lower density districts. Landscaping, buffer yards, screenings, and compatible height and scale methods should be employed to minimize, again, negative impacts. I have here, I think, 8 or 10 different examples of apartments directly adjacent to single family. All I did was go on Bing, Google Maps, whatever you want to call them, and show apartments. So this one on the bottom there, I think that's 74th or 77th in Mogan. The one on the top is on the east side of town, like at 54th and Sycamore. Then on the right-hand side again, there's the 54th. To the right, those are down at 85th and Louise Avenue. The one in the northwest, that's at 41st and Sycamore. Southwest, that corner there, that's at Cliff Avenue and 69th Street. The one to the right is again the ones that I picked off at 69th and Louise. And the one on the left is back at Bitterroot. So just some of the ones that when I was putting this PowerPoint together, this is pretty typical where we have adjacent to arterial streets, we put apartments directly adjacent to single family, and then we address it by saying the traffic, like in that upper right-hand corner, the traffic should come out and then go to the arterial street. They should have landscaping and buffering. If they don't do those things, then that's how we regulate it. But if they're addressing it, so again, kind of in my conclusion, always remember, and I mentioned this to a couple of people on other items as we walked in tonight, there's always minimum standards, which we won't get into tonight, but anytime you come in with a housing project, a commercial project, those projects have to go through a complete plan review where they have to meet lighting, signage, landscaping, parking, drainage, access, height, setbacks. Those things always have to be addressed. With that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Commissioners? Any questions for staff?
Question.
Yes, sir.
Would you speak to the reference to height and scale compatibility that's identified in your report?
Certainly. I don't have a lot of pictures, and the applicant will go into it a little bit more detail, but there's a 14-foot drop in the site. You should be able to look at the site plans and look at the renderings and see if the top of the buildings have less of a mass than the bottom of the buildings. Or did the buildings not address how they go from the top to the bottom? And again, when we look, I'm going the wrong way. When we look at how it was stated These should address it with the base and the lighter of the smaller buildings on the upper level. So did they do that with their project? The one on the bottom left there, Mr. Paulson, is one of their projects that they did in the southeast part of Sioux Falls, where I believe, and the one on the right is one that they've done in Hartford, where again, they've addressed the massing by not having it so large on the top of their buildings. So, and I don't think you always get that with single-family houses or with some twin homes.
Mr. Chair, one more
Yep.
question. Looking at the site, if single-family dwellings were developed there, what would the setback be on the south side of that property?
If a single family, and I tried to, my PowerPoint skills on that south side there, that's like a building footprint. On the south side, as you pointed out, if it was single family to single family, you would have a 5-foot side yard. So a single family structure could be within 5 feet of the homes to the south, and the rear yard would be to the back, or to the east is easier way to say it, yeah. So on to the east, to the right, it'd be 25, and to the bottom, it would be 5 feet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Commissioners? Thank you, Jeff. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak regarding item number 8? Item 8.
Good evening. My name is Damien Gribble. I'm with Earhart Griffin and Associates, the project engineer on this site. Again, I'd like to thank you for your time tonight on this project, and I'd like to just address some of the issues that we may have on this site, or what we can do on this site. Again, I'll begin with drainage on this site. The site generally drains from the east to the west, so that would be towards the street with the curb and gutter that we currently have, and generally that street drains from the south to the north. So we'll be directing our stormwater away from the south, and we'd also be directing our stormwater away from the east to the northwest site. And in that corner, we anticipate some type of detention structure or some type of basin, and we'll make sure those basins, with our site plan, will go through city engineering. So we'll meet the city engineering code work for that. So again, that's how I anticipate the drainage on this site. Again, if we want to touch on the setbacks, on our proposed site plan here, we show a sketch plan. We were asked to show what could you use or what could you do on this property with this zone. So this is something that we could do with the property. After a couple of revisions, we've come back. Again, on the south side, if a twin home was developed on that, it could be 7 feet away from that fence or from that backyard on the south side. What we're proposing is a 40-foot setback from that south side. The minimum lot requirement for a single-family lot in the city of Sioux Falls is 50 feet. So we're almost providing a full residential lot from those backyards on that south side. The minimum, if we were just to keep the minimums per shape Sioux Falls, that would be 15 feet with the level B buffer yard. That level B buffer can also use a 4-foot opaque fence. Generally, what we propose on these projects is a 6-foot opaque fence. So whenever we do one of these projects, we will build a 6-foot fence, and it'll be on the exterior on all sides of the project. So that would address the transition to the south is the 40-foot setback. Our transition to the east, again, the property is not annexed into the city of Sioux Falls, so we don't know what that property will be. But being that we are coming in with development first, we have to assume that property would be single-family homes, and that's the buffer yard that we have to provide. If it comes into the city of Sioux Falls and it's changed to townhomes or commercial or office or anything else, they can do that. But at this point in time, we will provide that minimum 15-foot level B buffer yard with the 6-foot fence. We show on our site plan, we show up to 30 plus feet, and that's something that we can work with. But again, not knowing what that property would be, not being annexed into the city of Sioux Falls, we just would like to be flexible on that side, and just know that obviously we will provide the minimum of the 15-foot buffer yard. Again, if the townhomes were to be developed to the east, the minimum buffer yard there, I believe, would be 10 feet. So we're already providing, you know, a greater buffer yard than that would be provided or required. The maximum building height, as measured by the city of Sioux Falls for this zoning, is 45 feet. A townhome building height can be up to 35 feet. As determined by the city of Sioux Falls. So the max would be 45 feet. The way these buildings are measured, they're actually 35 feet is what the building height is. So we're not as tall as we need to, but per the building code regulations, that's where we come in at on our building height for this proposed project. As far as traffic, as Jeff said, you know, this Collector Street, Brett Avenue running north-south, that's designed to carry about 5,000 cars or vehicles per day. 85th Street can carry anywhere from 15 to 25,000 vehicles per day. The way we get these massings, or the way we would like, you know, to develop, and this is general development, as you can imagine, as the people leave their neighborhoods, they all gather at these points to exit the neighborhoods. This is why we mass apartments at these points, at where your collector streets meet your arterial streets. We would choose to do, as the developer to the west did, is not line this street with any more driveways for local residences. Internal parking lots, and then the people could leave, get to the stoplight or potential stoplight at 85th and Brett Avenue, and then they could make their way to their offices, to their work, to where they would like to leisurely spend their time. So we think this is a good spot for the traffic that's going to be generated to be close to that major arterial street, 85th Street, so these people don't go back through the neighborhoods and they don't go anywhere else. We do know that there is a school north of this site that obviously the kids will be attending. But the way the city of Sioux Falls likes to place their schools is they place schools on two major collectors. So they place their schools on streets that can accept the traffic to get people there. So obviously we're going to have trips that go to the school and people go to that school. But if you would look at the design of the roads to the school, I think they've tried to minimize the sidewalks or the driveways that are on those major collectors. So again, people will go to school, they'll go to work, they'll get on 85th Street, and that's how they'll use the street network. Obviously, you wouldn't put this internal to a subdivision or neighborhood. You put this on the outside edges is where you'd like to do that. The transitions, again, this is a project that we have built at 54th and Sycamore. We do have a transition to the north of single-family homes. There's also Stone or Canyon Creek Apartments. Same thing, residential single-family homes on the north side of that apartment complex. Also, Louise and Bitterroot, same thing. You can see that there's a transition from apartments to single-family homes in the rear yard as well. We think we have a good product. I think we had a couple shots of what we're proposing to build up there. I think we offer very good architectural elements. Every side of the building has a nice mixture of stone. It has hard siding. It has decorative gables on there as well. So I think we have a good-looking product that will that we can offer to this neighborhood. Again, like I said, we generally use a 6-foot-high fence. So we're going above and beyond our buffer yards. We're using a 32-unit building. So again, you could, in this zoning with a form, you could go up to a 48-unit building. We're restricting it to a 32-unit building. That's the product that we like to build. On the site, There's plenty of trees on the site. If we can avoid taking down as many trees as possible, that's what we'll do. And I think with those increased setbacks that we're offering, we can avoid many of the trees. We'll also be adding trees. Along with the fence, the 30 units of landscaping units per linear foot, we'll be adding that as well. So we'll also add a fence, and we'll also add the trees. And another thing that you can see on our sketch plan, we'll have playgrounds. You can see the playground structures that we'll be offering. I believe 3 playground structures internally as well. Our parking will be internal to the project also. Anything that would be external to the project, it would be screened, but you can see on our sketch plan that all the parking is internal. We have directed that internally into the project. Again, the buffer yards I think I addressed on the south and the east. To the north, in Sioux Falls in this, an arterial street satisfies your buffer yards. So basically, if you're up against an arterial street, I mean, that's it. If you're carrying 25,000 cars per day, you don't transit than the arterial street. So that's about where we see that cutoff as well, if that makes sense. Again, in closing, I think we have a good project here. I think it's located in the correct place. It's near where the major collector meets the arterial. It allows the people to get out, use the major arterial to get around town and to come back home for this massing type project. The street size, you can even see if you have the actual zoning map. Brett Avenue coming from the south, you can see those 2 lots just south of us. I mean, they're 10 feet short because of the larger road that has to be accommodated, and that's because you're getting closer to the exterior of the development and you need to carry more traffic. So those 2 lots right there are already 10 feet smaller than the rest of the lots down 88th Street. And again, that would be to accommodate the larger road to get the traffic to the outside edge of the neighborhoods and get it to 85th Street. Excuse me. Again, as far as the apartments are concerned, people in apartments, they don't like noisy neighbors just as much as anybody else, and they like their privacy as much as anybody else. So just to think that they can make good neighbors as well. And as far as lighting, as part of our development plan or our building plan, we'll have to submit a photometric plan. So it will analyze, they'll look at all the lights that we propose on site, and it'll analyze how much light is escaping the site. And we'll have to meet the city's requirements for that. No additional lighting or whatever the city requirements are for lighting, we'll have to meet those requirements as well. And that will be analyzed by an electrical engineer, submitted to the city for review and approval. And then I guess in closing, if there are any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. But again, I do think this is a good location for this product. It matches what we have on the west side of 85th and Brett. It gets the people to the major collector, and it puts them on their major arterials right where they need to be to get their services, to shop, to work, anything else that they may need to do. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you may have any.
Thank you. Real quick before we get there, I need to apologize to everyone. The proper course of action would be to request the petitioner to come forward. I didn't do it that way. It's a lot harder than it looks, guys, so I apologize for that.
That's quite all right. We do have a representative of the petitioner here as well, and she'd like to speak also, if there's no questions.
Mr. Chair? Mr. Gribble, you had talked about setbacks on the south and the east side.
Correct.
Could you redefine in your site plan what those setbacks are, the way you're recommending them?
Right now, what we have shown on the south side is a 40-foot setback. So, again, that's what we have shown. On the east side, we have it varies from a 38 to 39 foot, but we would just like to be flexible on that east side. Again, that property is not annexed into the city. We know we have to keep the minimum for if it was to come in at a single family, the 15 foot. So we're providing a greater setback there, but with the uncertainty of that property not being in the city and what it could be developed as, we just look to be flexible on that side as well. But we do show greater than 35 feet on that east side. We do.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Commissioners?
Mr. Chair? So, I mean, kind of along those same lines, we can put conditions on rezones now, and if we had something like a minimum of a 40-foot setback to the south and a 30-foot setback to the east, you guys would be comfortable with that being a condition on the rezone?
I'd let the representative, the owner, or the owner address that, but I think we could be very comfortable on the south side. The east side, again, without that property being annexed in, I don't know if we would be that restrictive, but we could obviously work with you. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions, Commissioner, at this time? At this point, would the petitioner like to come forward to talk to that particular item or any other items? Thank you.
Commissioners, Chairman, Joan Franken, I'm the Managing Director for Costello Companies, 7409 South Bitterroot Place in Sioux Falls. And if you would like me to address that right away, as Damien stated, this is a proposed site plan. It's not something that is definite with the neighbors not annexed into the city limits. We don't know what that's going to be. Again, we show 35 feet. We've got the required setback on the west side, and we show 35 feet on the east side. We also show our playgrounds in that building. This has not been officially reviewed by the engineering department. They've taken a look at it, but we haven't put together a full set of plans. So with that, we just like that flexibility if they want those shifted to the east a little bit more, or it needs to go through the fire department review as well. So at this time, we cannot commit to that, but we have committed as for a condition of the rezone to have the 40-foot buffer on the south for a setback. We are requesting the rezone of this parcel from Ag to RA2 for two reasons. The first being that we need to dedicate our half of Brett Avenue, the street that was completed, so that we are not held personally liable for anything that would happen on that street. The second being, and what I'm going to talk about tonight that hasn't been talked about before, is to have the proper zoning for the proposed site plan, including 30 to 32 unit buildings for apartment complexes. 2,083. That is the current number of people on a waiting list for vouchers at Sioux Falls Housing. A voucher that will assist those individuals in paying no more than 30% of their rent, 30% of their income for housing. 3.5 years, or 1,277 days. That is the current estimated waiting time for one of those vouchers for Sioux Falls Housing. 435. Jeff, if you would go to the Chasing Willows plan, please, picture. That is the current number of people on a waiting list, not only for this project, but the other units that were also shown in one of the slides out there. 435 individuals are on a waiting list for these units out on East 54th, which is within 5 miles of our proposed project here on 85th and Brett Avenue. 3,500 individuals, or 1,240 households. This is the number of people moving into Sioux Falls every year. What do these numbers mean? They mean that there's a critical need for affordable housing, affordable workforce housing in Sioux Falls. Recently, the first phase of a pilot project of Sioux Falls Thrive, conducted by Augustana Research Institute, a branch of Augustana University, was completed. The Sioux Falls Affordable Housing Needs Assessment for 2016 was released, in which Thrive chose affordable housing as the focus because it is the key to recruiting and retaining workforce for continued economic growth, and because of the substantial shortage of housing for those making 50% or less of the area median income. The study concluded that despite very low unemployment, currently at 2.1% in the city of Sioux Falls, that the city of Sioux Falls has low wages. And although it is considered one of the most affordable cities in the country, comparisons of the median income, which is approximately $72,000 for Sioux Falls, to median housing costs show a growing demand for housing that is affordable for those making 60% or less of the area median income, specifically those under 50%, as mentioned before. A critical component of workforce development is having a supply of safe and quality affordable housing to support workforce needs. A realtor with Keller Williams recently commented that there is no entry-level, affordable single-family home in Sioux Falls. Most people pay more than 30% of their income in rent, taxes and insurance, and utilities. So the only good options for a growing number of people of all ages is renting, affordable workforce rental housing. And there is such a limited supply of affordable housing in Sioux Falls that it slows the overall economic development and impact on growth for the city. It is well known that our company, Costello Companies, is in the apartment industry. We have been developing apartments for over 40 years. We specialize in developing affordable housing, specifically affordable workforce housing throughout South Dakota, and have a large portfolio in Sioux Falls. We use the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program and other government programs as part of the financing for the apartment complexes, targeting individuals and families making between 30% and 60% of the area median income. For a single individual, that would mean that the income limits would be between $15,120 at 30% and $30,240 at 60%. At $30,000, just over $30,000, that is someone making $14.53 an hour. Those go up. We can have someone, if it's a 5-person household in our 3-bedroom units that we're proposing here for the rezone, it can go up to $46,680. As you can see, this is truly workforce housing. I believe we all know someone, have an adult child, a family member, or know a friend that makes between $14 and $20 an hour. And they would qualify to live in one of these beautiful units and would not be paying more than 30% of their income in rent and utilities, and they would be living in affordable workforce housing. Costello Companies not only develops these apartments, but we also manage them. Our apartment complexes are members of the Crime-Free Housing Program, and what that means is that in addition to credit and a criminal background screening that is done on every applicant, the police department will come out to the property as it is being built, and they inspect the doors, the viewers, the lighting, etc., for safety features. For this complex, we would have a manager with an office on site along with a regular maintenance technician. We inspect our apartments at a minimum of once every year. Every year, every single unit is inspected, and we tell our tenants and applicants that their apartment complex can be inspected up to 4 times a year based on our financing programs. If we find that they are not following our rules and regulations, and that includes littering, cleanliness of their unit, parking rule violations, noise, etc., it would be an infractable offense. If they don't follow the rules, they don't get to live there. Approximately 10 years ago, Costello Companies purchased this parcel of land for the purpose of developing affordable housing, apartments, on this site. They knew that the city's plan had 85th Street slated for a 4-lane arterial street with street lights, and eventually growing to the west to be the next retail employment center for the city of Sioux Falls. The improvements to 85th Street are scheduled to be complete within the next couple of years, which would pave the way for the land to the west to be developed into the retail and employment center that it is planned for. What is the buffer between single-family residential homes and the arterial and collector streets? Those streets having stoplights and 4 lanes of traffic leading to the next Empire Mall area of the Sioux Falls. The buffer is high-density multifamily apartments, not single-family homes and not twin homes. The city planners will tell you, along with seasoned developers, that single-family and low-density residential does not belong on the corner of an arterial and collector street. Affordable workforce housing should be within close proximity to retail, services, schools, and employment opportunities, of which this is the perfect location for an affordable workforce housing apartment complex. Major retail and office are planned to the west, again, an employment center. This land is where workforce housing should be built. The Thrive report also outlined the complexity of affordable housing development and stated housing development is driven by financing constraints more than client needs. Due to the limited resources, typically new construction of apartments caters to higher income levels. The land that we own at the corner of 85th and Bread is a perfect location for the affordable workforce housing complex that we are proposing, and the RA2 zoning is what will allow these buildings to be constructed and will allow them to be affordable to individuals and families, again, making between 30% and 60% of the area median income. A lower density zoning will reduce the number of units and will drive the land cost up per unit to a point that the units will not be affordable within those 30 to 60% ranges. It will eliminate an affordable workforce housing apartment complex in the city of Sioux Falls. We are respectively asking you, commissioners, to look at the plan and that staff has fully recommended and support the rezone for our proposed site plan from agricultural to RA2 zoning. And at this time, I will answer any questions that you have for me.
Commissioners?
I have a question, Mr. Chair. Have you had an opportunity for communications with any of the neighbor residents?
We have, not myself specifically, but Dan Casello and Bonnie Mogan from our company have met with a couple of the neighbors twice.
Any additional questions? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, now, at this time, I'd like to invite anyone from the public that would like to address item number 8. To come forward, state your name and address, and provide your testimony. Good evening.
Hello. Thank you very much for listening to the other side. My name is Vicki Reef, and my husband and I are the ones that live to the east. We are the property that continues to be discussed as uncertainty about what will happen with us. But I can tell you that we're not going anywhere. We've been there a long time. So we're the property that both Amy McCune and I live on acreages, and we are the whole east side of the property, which directly next to Costello's land is Amy's property, and then we are the ones that are to the east of that. There's a large group of us who feel this proposal requesting rezoning of this designated property bordered on 3 sides by single-family residents from ag to R2 moderate density is an inappropriate request. We feel that the city should support us, and it should not be taking sides on who was right and where the development should go. We feel that we have been pretty invisible in all of this because plans have been made around us and never included us to tell us, you know, when we purchased our property, we met with the city planning 12 years ago and said, we are looking for country living. We want to raise our family in the country on rural property. 85th Street was a dark street. You couldn't even see where to turn. We asked, what is the city plans for this? This was back in October of 2004, and we were told there's nothing in the 15-year plan. So we purchased this property, we completely remodel it, we build a shed on it. This is going to be our lifetime investment in our property, and never did we know that we were going to be completely surrounded and then treated as though we don't exist. On the proposal, we're listed as NA because it doesn't matter who we are because we're not annexed in the city. We are the country. The city completely surrounded us. So we have looked at the SHAPE Sioux Falls 2035 comprehensive plan, and I understand that Sioux Falls is growing fast and that they need a plan. It's very exciting, yet I think that we're just very unique property because we are rural, surrounded now by urban, or on the fringe of urban, but not yet quite urban. We have the single-family homes on the agricultural zone property encapsulated with this development, and it makes us unique, but I don't think it should disqualify us. We are still citizens of the community, and we are homeowners that are being adversely affected by this. The SHAPE plan is a great resource for the city, but yet it's pretty confusing. It provides a table of compatibility between zoning, with number 5 being the best. This would consist of single-family homes being bordered by single-family homes. This proposal for R2 moderate density zoning would give us a level 3 compatibility, saying that there would be potential for incompatibility. So why would the city settle for something that is going to potentially be incompatible? That's a level 3 versus a 5. Is a 3 okay? Is that what Sioux Falls is settling for? If Sioux Falls is supposed to be about the people and wants to be Sioux Falls at its best, then why is a 3 even an option? That would be like if a patient came to see me in the clinic and I said, oh, today am I going to give this patient a number 5, excellent service, or maybe I'll only give this patient satisfactory or average service today. So if that's the case, then I think that the plan needs to define a little bit better when will a number 3 be allowed? When a number 5 would be, of course, recommended. Who would it be allowed for? Where would it be allowed? And what circumstances would prevail to allow the city to agree to a number 3 versus the best, which would be the number 5? A person's home, no matter whether it costs $9,000, $90,000, or $900,000, is an investment that people take pride in and continually put equity into it. But as you all know, home is way more than just a financial investment. It's a way of life, a place to raise your families, to build memories, and become part of a community. And your SHAPE comprehensive plan also addresses this by stating that single-family house has been an American dream since the end of World War II. Traditional zoning has helped protect the integrity of the single-family home to ensure that suburban residential lifestyles do not conflict with automobile-dominated developments. Therefore, very few other types of development have been allowed within single-family neighborhoods, except for parks, schools, and places of worship. Also, single-family neighborhoods have all been typically very low-density areas. This is from the SHAPE plan. We purchased our acreage 12 years ago. We looked for a long time to find the property. We wanted to live in the country. I get it. The city has surrounded us. We now are going to have the major, what they call arterial street built in front of us. It will wipe out all the trees down our road. We didn't ask for this. It has just become part of what's happening in Sioux Falls. But all we have left then is our backyard. Our backyard is what we have to look at the stars at night, to watch the sun rise and set. And if these large apartment complexes are built along our property, all we are going to see is an apartment building next to our land. Again, we thought that this was a good investment, and I would think that the city would have the responsibility of protecting its citizens. We are not saying that there isn't a need for apartment complexes to be built. We are not saying whether it's low income or high income. All we are saying is that we too are citizens. It is going to directly impact not only our property values, our way of life, but also potentially our physical and emotional health, because it's going to be such a huge transition that we're going to have to try to overcome. Members of our community have gathered to express how rezoning this land next to us will affect us. And I'd like everyone to stand who is part of our community and who is here in support of this today. Thank you. Thank you. We also have a petition that addresses 156 other people that show concern for this potential rezoning. Again, our concerns that we're going to address will focus on the impact this will have on the value of our homes, the quality of our life, and the physical and emotional health for all of us. Do you have any questions?
Commissioners? Any questions for Ms. Reif?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this item? Good evening.
Troy Hogness. I live at 7621 South Afton, directly north of the property to the northwest or northeast there. Essentially, you know, my testimony tonight is virtually identical to 2 months ago when we were here on December 7th. And I know Larry's not here. I know Larry from prior engagements, but I think that the comment that Mr. Irvin, you made is it's a very abrupt change when it looks at transition from RA2 to single family. And I challenged the committee last time, is there anybody anywhere else in Sioux Falls that sees 3 sides of a property or RA2 property zoned, surrounded by single family? I know they made arguments that there is in other parts of town, but we did our research, we did our homework. I know a lot of people here tonight spent probably all week preparing for tonight's meeting, but we did our homework too. And many properties of Costello's and other RA2 zones are surrounded, but maybe it's 1 or 2 sides at most by single family, not 3. And I think you got to consider the rural residential as a single family zoning right now, because there's a single family house there. There's not multifamily. It's 1 family. And then in Amy McEwen, and then to the east, there's another family, Vicki and Mark Reef. So again, that to us as a neighborhood, that's a single family house. And I know the shape places transition compatibility chart is very confusing to the average citizen, but I studied it. And when I look at, again, like Vicki had mentioned, you know, this is a potentially incompatible zoning request, a level 3 or a 3 on the score of 1 to 5. And so again, that's looking at it, is there anywhere else in town that is similar in a zoning for that level 3 or on the compatibility chart? We should be looking at a 4 or a 5. And again, that's our biggest concerns. I know there's some other people in the audience that want to address the property values, traffic, et cetera. But I think the biggest thing we want to stress as a neighborhood is the transition. Again, Mr. Irvin mentioned it's an abrupt change. Last time we were here 2 months ago. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Excuse me, just 1 second. Commissioners, any questions?
Mr. Chair? You know, I don't have the compatibility chart in front of me, but what, besides single family, what else is a 5 to single family?
Low density residential, 1 to 3 units per acre. I can pass this around if you guys need it. Okay. And a 4 on this chart is 6 to 12 units per acre, medium density residential.
Okay. Thanks.
So, yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? Great. Just real quick, brief pause. Commissioner Irvin, are you still good?
I need to leave, actually, so.
Thank you. Thank you for your service tonight. Understood. Please come forward. Thank you, by the way. Hi.
Hello, I'm Amy McEwen. I'm the one on the east side of the property in question that is considered an NA. And just when you asked Bonnie, or I'm not sure, I can't remember her name, if they met with any of us, they met with Vicki and I, the ones that are really not considered part of this whole process. I don't know why they didn't meet with the rest of them that are surrounding the property. So, and they didn't really, they just told us that this is what they wanted to do, and we didn't agree with it. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I'm on the east side. I've been there 20 and a half years. We made some investments in our property. We built on 1,200 square feet. We gutted it, not gutted it, well, pretty much gutted the inside and remodeled the whole thing. So this is our home. This is where we want to be. I don't want to sell it and make twin homes. I'm not a developer. This is my home. I worked 2 to 3 jobs to pay for that, my husband and I. So I get it, being low income. I raised my kids there. We could go off and 4-wheel, ride horses, do everything. And then when he bought that land, he knew I was there. And I wasn't the only resident out there. There were other people that we call it the horseshoe. They're there. They're just up down the road a little ways. I mean, there were residents directly across an acreage. I mean, they sold out a while ago, but they were there. He knew he was buying by residential people. And he must have known that they were going to be building residence properties on the south side of him, of that property. So just kind of give you, calm down myself here, a little demonstration. But they're saying they're giving me this 35-foot or 38-foot buffer. Well, those playgrounds, the way they have it laid out, are coming right up to my property, are within feet. 3 of them, 4-foot fence. All that gives us is somebody to lean up against the fence and view into my property. 2 of the playgrounds are viewing right into where my master bedroom is and my bathroom. Then also the parking lots. I mean, 2 of them are right directly across from my home, the house, where the house is. And every person that's going to drive into that parking lot, I'm going to get their headlights right into my home. I don't, that's just how it looks to me anyway. All the lighting on the playground, all the lighting on the buildings, all the lighting in the parking lots, that's going to light up my whole yard and the people to the south. It's going to be like a Las Vegas Strip out there. It's going to be so lit up. And I'm going to have to deal with every 200 to 300 people viewing into my home place. I know people need a place to live. I've been there. But is it right next to my property now? My single home family, is that where we put these things? They're across from Brett Road is the townhomes. And in front of those townhomes along the road are garages. So if you put single family homes on Mr. Costello's land, they would have the road, the street as a buffer, garage then as a buffer before they even get to the townhomes, not apartment buildings. So why would we go from townhomes to apartment buildings, single family? I mean, they're not doing it on the north side of 85th that way. They're going single family, the street, town garages, and townhomes. I think we should have that same consideration. Let's see. Okay, got to open over that. Okay, so, and then not only the lighting, the cars coming and going, 152 plus cars coming and going, again, looking right into my home every time they come into that parking lot. On the south side, they have a building blocking the parking lot. Not mine. I get all 3 of them looking right into my lot. And again, I'm not going anywhere. That's my home. That's my investment. That's my retirement investment. Back to kind of what Vicki said, we are citizens. We're agriculture. We're still citizens of Sioux Falls. And this neighborhood is our community. And we're employed at major corporations here in Sioux Falls, and we're just part of this Sioux Falls atmosphere. And we deserve the same equal value as Mr. Costello is considering his property. I mean, our value shouldn't be decreased any more than, we made our investments before he did. I did. Vicki did. We were there. So we just feel, allowing the zoning to go through will definitely cause harm to us, our homes, a reflection of our hard work. Our pride in our pride in ourselves and our homes and our community. So we just want you guys to really consider this zoning as not a good fit. And as far as they say, this traffic going off to 85th, we all know once there gets a line, they're going to turn the other way and go down the other way. It's easy. I do it. I see a big line of cars off, I'm going to go to the other direction. So, yep, that's where we all want them to go. I don't know how you force people to do that. I guess that's all I have for you, but anybody have questions for me?
Commissioners, any questions for Ms. McEwen? Good. Thank you very much for your testimony. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on item number 8? As you're coming up, I just want to recap what I've heard so far. We've talked about or heard testimony related to views and obstruction, the lighting spilling over, traffic density, impact to property values, the excess noise in the neighborhood, and we've had a notable show of census from the neighborhood. Everyone standing up is what I mean by that. So again, if you're offering new testimony beyond those particular items, and I might have missed a few, but please come forward and state your name and address, and we'd love to hear from you.
My name's Matt Edwards, and I live at 4120 West 88th Street, so I'd be the second house in from the corner of Brett. I'm just going to touch a little bit for the houses on the south side. Kind of feels like to me and my family, we bought our house 9 months ago and knew something was going to be built back there, absolutely. But didn't know it was going to be to this scale, this large apartment complex, 40 feet off of our fence. For me and my family, I have roughly 10 feet of grass, 5 feet of rocks, 10 feet of grass between my house and fence. So for me and my family, sitting in our backyard, playing in the sandbox with the kids, grilling on the deck, it just kind of feels like we're going to be being watched all the time. You know, there's 32 units or whatever in that building. You know, there's nothing there to stop people from just watching our everyday lives, playing with our kids in the backyards. So for that, to me, kind of feels like our privacy is being taken away from the home that we feel that we're going to retire in. That's why we bought this home. So that's all I really got to say.
Well, thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Mr. Edwards? Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the audience? And again, new items that we may not have already heard. Thank you.
My name is Angie McCarthy. My husband and I live at 4200 West 88th Street. So we are the last house, we're right behind it, right on the corner of 88th and Brett. We purchased this house a little over a year ago, and this was not a starter home for us. So not only is it a single family housing community, but I also feel it's a community people work to move up to. You know, we lived for 13 years in a very modest home to work hard and save so that we could end up in a home like this that would accommodate our family better. And you know, it definitely, this isn't a starter home for us. I mean, this is also a forever home. And so to work to get there, to end up with this right behind us is pretty devastating. I actually blew up a couple of pictures that I just wanted to show you. So I'm standing in my living room, looking out to where this building will be. This is my window inside. I'm standing right there. So we have some decking off the back of our house. This is my husband standing at 40 feet. So imagine a 3-story building right there. And then this is a picture of the back of our house, and this is 40 feet from where that building will sit. So as far as talking, you know, again, I know we've kind of touched on these things, but as far as talking about the transition, you know, I mean, even if you push this back, you know, 20 feet was really close, 40 feet, I don't feel has changed much. There's just no transition as far as throwing up a building of that magnitude right behind someone's house. And so I just wanted to present these pictures just to kind of give you a little closer up look at what it really looks like from where we're at, you know. So you can understand, I mean, it's pretty devastating for us, but that's really all I have to share tonight. So any questions?
Commissioners? Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else would like to speak on this matter? New testimony, new items that we haven't already heard? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Nathan Schauer. My wife and I live at the residence at 4112 West 88th Street. And basically what I kind of wanted to go over is Jeff and Damien had touched on this a little bit, how previously at the last meeting in December, they brought up the apartment complex at 4800 East 54th Street, saying that it was single family on two sides of it. What they didn't mention was that both sides that are single family are undeveloped. As you can see on this first picture, nobody's building there. I'm not familiar with the area. I don't know if it's gotten developed that far, but there's no houses there. So if someone wants to build a house there, that's their prerogative. They have to deal with the apartment building that sits there. All open lots to the north of that complex. Here's a picture facing to the east of the complex on 54th Street. There again, you have about a 150-yard buffer and 0 houses there. Again, whoever decides to build a house there, that's their decision. We didn't get to make that decision. We lived here before them, before this came about us. Now, this is just a picture, and Amy touched on this a little bit, so we'll skip by these real quick. Next picture here. Okay, so this is the buffer. This is a picture taken from the west side of Amy's land, who lives to the east. This is what they call a buffer. I think there's 2 trees there that will separate her property from the apartment complex to the west. If you go to the next picture, that's her house. There's 1 tree there that's going to buffer those 4 windows from that 3-story apartment complex. Doesn't seem like much of a buffer to me. I also did my research, and I actually I went on Costello's website and looked up I went to their homepage, and I searched for the LIHTC apartments that they had on their homepage. I visited every single one of them and took pictures of every single one of them. There's 12 complexes on there, and all of them are on these sheets. If you guys want one, you can have them. It says what's on all 4 sides of the apartment complex. On all 12 of these facilities, one of them has single-family homes directly behind them. And that complex is more entry-level homes. It's more, and you have a 60-foot. I counted the squares on the sidewalk, and there was a minimum of 60 feet from the back of their yard to the apartment complex. So it's just really confusing to us as neighbors why this is even being considered to be allowed. After walking door to door around our neighborhood for signatures for our petition and doing our research as far as looking at all the other LIHTC apartments listed on Costello's homepage of their website, we came to this conclusion. The proposed area for this new apartment complex does not even remotely follow the landscape and flow of the rest of Sioux Falls. Myself and my neighbors feel that if this project is passed and allowed to be constructed, we are all part of a rigged system which benefits only the developer while we as taxpayers suffer. And again, Amy mentioned, I'm all for affordable housing. I have family members that have lived in affordable housing. There's a place for it. It ain't in our backyard. If I would have been Mr. Costello, he's a hell of a lot smarter than me, I would have built it to the west. He would have no problems if he built his apartment complex to the west of the twin homes. I thought he would know better than that, but that's really all I have.
I appreciate it, Mr. Schauer.
Yep.
Commissioners, any questions? Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else? New testimony for item number 8. Sorry, one quick thing, yes.
Amy McEwen again. You know how they mentioned how between homes there's only 7 feet, or and then 10 feet between townhomes, and then the 15 feet between apartments, and they're trying to hit on that. That's there's less between homes. Well, we're neighbors. We go out and grill with our person that lives only 10 feet away from us. That's what a community is. In apartments, they come, rent for 6 months to a year, some 2 years, You don't get to know people in apartment buildings. And I'm sorry, you just don't, You do when you live in an apartment, you get to know a few people that you pass every day. But us, we're in a community, we do, 7 feet between us, that's not a big deal because we're out visiting with them. We're out grilling with them and having, talking to them and being friends and neighbors. So I just kind of wanted to touch on, 7 feet between us is different between homes than it is, between apartment buildings and home.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience? Okay, at this time, I'm going to close down for public testimony, and I will look for commission action on item number 8.
Mr. Chair, I'll move for approval with the condition that the south boundary have a 40-foot setback.
We have a motion to approve and a second with the stipulation of a 40-foot south side setback. Discussion.
Mr. Chair? I appreciate the neighbors coming out and having the conversation. It's always nice for that to happen. As I look at the Planning Commission and what our job is, we're a land use body, and does moderate density apartments belong at the intersection of a major arterial street and a collector street? And I would say yes to that. That's where you see apartment buildings all over town. That's where they belong. That's where they go. I think the buffer yard to the south and the proposed one to the east help alleviate some of the concerns with the buildings being as close as people think they are, or think they will be. And I think some of you heard some comments about lighting and some other things, and those are all addressed in ordinance. Light can't spill over. There's noise ordinance and that sort of thing that I think take care of all those. So again, I appreciate all the comments and testimony, but I'm going to support this one because moderate density apartments belong at that sort of an intersection.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Chair, I have a question actually for Jeff. As far as the height requirements go, can you tell me what the residential height restriction is? Is that also 35 feet?
For the question was, what's the height restrictions? A single-family home is restricted to a 35-foot height, and a multifamily home is restricted to a 45-foot height.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple more questions for Mr. Schmidt, if possible.
Yes.
In the setback area, buffer yard area, can they fill that in with their playgrounds? Does the playground go into that area?
Yes.
Okay.
Setbacks for anybody, a commercial building, a single-family building, if you look at single-family houses too, the setbacks on a single-family property are 25 feet. It's the principal structure to your property line, and they build things in their setbacks, but you can't build your principal structure within that setback.
Okay.
So it's the same rules for everybody.
That's why my place set is in the backyard by the
Right,
fence.
correct.
Yep.
We don't change it for any, we don't just, as some people have said tonight, we're not making up just because there's somebody different. It's the same rules for everybody in the same room.
Okay, and I wanted to make sure that was
Yep.
out there. The other is there parking along Brett Street?
Currently, yes, it's a collector street.
And there will be?
And there will be, just like they're on the local streets. On arterial streets, you cannot park, but on collectors and on local streets, they can park on both sides of the streets. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for Jeff. You talked about a setback on the east side. You talked about a setback on the east side?
Yes, sir.
And what was the recommendation regarding that?
I think the first person, Damien, spoke on that. Their setbacks on the east side on their plans are generally 39 feet, is what they're showing. And they had talked about they didn't want to be restricted to it. Their rear yard setbacks for an apartment are 10 feet required, and so you can do what you would like with the applicant between 10 feet and, I think that's your question? I mean, the requirement's 10 feet on that east side. And they're showing 39 feet. Does that answer the question?
My question is, was there a recommendation?
No,
regarding
there was not a recommendation in the staff report. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions for Jeff, commissioners? Very good. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm having a hard time with this one. As I didn't have a lot to say last time because I was the chairman, so my job was to run the meeting, and I really didn't have a say in it and wasn't supposed to have a say in it. But I agree with what Mr. Irwin had said before. This is a very abrupt change, going from single family to low density, so to speak, apartments. Okay. Yes, I agree with Nick that that is a good place for an apartment along an arterial and a collector street, but not when it's surrounded by single family only. We don't have the buffer. We usually go to a townhome, then to the apartments. We're not getting that out of this, and I do realize that there's an NA on the one side, not applicable because they're not in the city, but we have to look at them as part of the citizens of Sioux Falls. I do anyway. And with that, I have a hard time supporting this one. I don't think I could.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair, do we have any pictures of what is directly west of the property?
Yes. That is directly west.
Any other questions there? Okay. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair, I agree with the other commissioners that this is a difficult issue. And this is not the first time that this has come to the Planning Commission. And however, there is new evidence that was not presented in the previous meeting, specifically regarding the traffic patterns away from the school onto the arterial street, the drainage with a grade, 14-foot grade, the precedence issues, the extension of the buffers, and then the height of the property, and comparing that, putting this particular apartment building versus townhomes, which would be closer to the residential properties and have the same height requirements. So I agree with Nick, or Commissioner Irwin. I'm sorry.
Nick.
Yep.
Very good, thank you. We'll give a last call for discussion.
Mr. Chair, I think that we're encountering the same situation that we've had before without a complete reconciliation of what the options might be with regards to setbacks and the way the property would be developed, and I'm in agreement with Steve about that matter at this time.
John, if you're talking about the east side, you can always amend the motion if you want to include a setback.
Well, I think we need a recommendation regarding that, and I think that's part of the process that we need to adhere to and respond to it. So that's one of my reasons for taking that look at it. I guess we could choose to defer and get that, but I think that's important.
I think based on the testimony, I think we have, I don't know that we need a recommendation from staff. I think we've heard from the applicant who wanted some flexibility. We know what their plan is, and we know what the minimum is, so I mean, if you have a thought as to what it should be, I say go for it.
Yeah, it sounded a bit indeterminate at this time, pending some further reviews.
But what further reviews?
Well, as I understand it, with the engineering department.
I think that was more based on what might develop to the east in the future, which I don't know that we're going to be able to decide in the next month or two or year or years. So.
Well, I stated what I feel.
Okay.
And I got to agree with Mr. Paulson on that, because that way I understood it when she said that, when Joan was talking about no setback on the east side, they didn't want to be limited to that, was because of the engineering reviews and because of the fire department and stuff like that. So she basically said she didn't want to be limited on the east side.
I appreciate that, but remember, we're talking about a rezone. We're not approving everything in their plan. We're saying, do apartments belong at this intersection? And if we want to make them 20 feet away from the side, we can do that. That's part of our purview as the planning commission. So I mean, that to me is something we can handle here if somebody wanted to make a recommendation for that. Again, I don't think it's based on exactly what their plan looks like, the color of the door or anything like that. It's about the land and what is going to happen with the land.
Very good. So, in surmise, if there's a desire for an amended motion for an east side setback, that's an option. Okay. Hearing no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor of item number 8 with a 40-foot south side setback, all other rules regarding shape, places, and place, signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed, same sign?
Yes.
Yes.
We'll do a show of hands for the record. Again, all in favor of item number 8, signify by raising your hand. Sorry, I can't raise mine, but there was 3. All opposed? 2. Item number 8 is approved. Split vote 3-2. Item number 9.
6129-2016 rezone from RT2 Townhome Residential Traditional District to the RA2 Apartment Residential Moderate Density District for allowed forms.
I hate to interrupt, but my understanding of what just occurred, there was a vote 3-2. You have 6 here to vote. You're a chairman, you count as part of the members present. You don't cast your vote unless there's a tie. You have to have 4 votes in favor of a positive recommendation. You had 3, so the recommendation fails, or the motion fails. So it's not an approval hasn't been passed. The motion has failed.
That's because Sean left in the middle?
Well, Sean left, and that put you guys at 6 for members present who can vote. The chairman doesn't vote unless there's a tie. You still need a majority of the individuals present, whether they're casting a vote or not. So you need 4 for the motion to proceed. So you had 3-2 with no ties, so the chairman can't vote, so the motion fails.
And
That's why it goes forward to planning.
Right.
If they approved it, it goes to city council. If they denied it, it goes to city council.
So it was a recommendation to the city council, and it will be with not a positive, but a 3-2 in favor of it, but still a not a positive recommendation.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Danny. Now, item number 9.
Item 9, 6129-2016 rezone from RT2 Townhome Residential Traditional District to the RA2 Apartment Residential Moderate Density District for allowed forms located at the southwest corner of South 2nd Avenue and East 14th Street.
Good evening, Diane DeCoyer with the Planning Office. The applicant for this is Jeff Hazard. The owner is Mary Swift Kelly. The location is the southwest corner of South 2nd Avenue and East 14th Street. The applicant is proposing to rezone 0.52 acres from the RT2 townhome residential district to the RA2 apartment residential moderate density district. The applicant plans to remove an existing single-family home on the northwest corner of the property. The existing home on the southeast corner of the property that's noted will remain and will be remodeled, again, for another 2-unit apartment house. The development provides the necessary transition from East 14th Street to the downtown PUD mixed-use development to the north, just across 14th Street, O office to the east and west, and single-family residential to the south with the required buffer yard. The proposed apartment building will be located along 14th Street and is 3 stories with basement level parking. The existing apartment house on the southeast portion of the property is a 2-story building adjacent to single-family residential with an existing detached garage and surface level parking in the rear. Because the subject application is consistent with the Shape Sioux Falls comprehensive plan, staff recommends approval for this rezoning. And I can answer any questions you have.
Commissioners, any questions for staff? Thank you, Diane. Is the petitioner here this evening? Please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Commission. Neil Schmid, Cirrus Commercial Realty Services, 315 North Main, Sioux Falls. I'm here representing both the buyer and the seller, actually, in proposing this project. It's a 22-unit new building on an arterial street, on the corner of an arterial street and a collector street. The one house actually, I believe, was referenced as a single family. I think it's a 2-unit apartment right now. It may have originally been built as a single family. There's a house on the southeast corner that is very remarkably preserved to its original condition. It was built in, I believe, 1890. So that unit will be restored and offered for rental. The 22-unit complex is surrounded by office on either side, a residential project to the north, and a single-family house to the south. So it'll be a beautiful project for an arterial street, and the site has a terrific view of downtown Sioux Falls. So we're looking forward to this redevelopment. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Schmidt? Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak regarding item number 9? Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Rachel Meyerink, 621 South Main Avenue. I am representing the Board of Directors of the All Saints Neighborhood Association. It is the mission of the All Saints Neighborhood Association to foster a safe, happy, and beautiful neighborhood. It is important that the neighborhood's voice be heard when part of our neighborhood is being rezoned. We would like to see the 14th Street corridor become more dense with housing, and it is important to us that the housing fit with the historic character of our neighborhood. The All Saints neighborhood welcomes neighbors of all socioeconomic backgrounds, and we hope that the neighborhood's long history of affordable housing will continue. While we do not take lightly the razing of a historic home and the displacement of 2 neighbors, we support the rezoning and the project proposed at 14th Street and 2nd Avenue. We are happy that the duplex located at 609 South 2nd Avenue will remain and be refreshed. We are pleased that a vacant lot on a busy street will become an attractive apartment complex, providing homes to new neighbors. We are glad that the architect of record has a track record of respecting neighboring properties and creating beautiful buildings. The development of this land is important to us, and we expect to be kept informed of this project. Jeff Hazard has met with me once already and has indicated that he plans to keep the neighborhood apprised of the new development. We recommend that the application for rezoning be approved. Sincerely, the neighborhood.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else from the audience that would like to speak regarding item number 9? Good evening.
I'm Mark Weber. I live at 910 South First Avenue. I'm also part of the All Saints Neighborhood Association. I'm also in support of this rezone, but I do have a couple of questions about the staff report of this project. If you go back to the shaped places, the color coding.
Zoning.
The one previous. Not everything that you see in here in yellow is single-family homes. Especially to the east, there are 2 properties, one that is a 4-plex, one that is a 3-plex. On the south, there is also one that is a 3-plex, and on the west, there is also one that is a 3-plex. I was down at planning this morning, and I was kind of surprised to learn that a property that was exchanged hands in October of 2014 on the south, that is now a 3-plex, is still classified as single-family home. I don't know how that happens, but I don't think that's quite appropriate as far as keeping properties up to date as far as land use. The only other thing that I have is the All Saints neighborhood participated in a lighting improvement project, which was conducted in October of 2015. The 15th Street, or the alley that's between First Avenue and Second Avenue, which is that alleyway between, has absolutely no public lighting. That has been that way forever. The city is planning on doing something. There are approximately 50 improvements that are planning to be made in the All Saints neighborhood, but that probably isn't being taken in consideration by the developer, but that's something that you should be aware of. And the only other comment that I have about the staff report is if there's supposed to be a buffer zone to the south on that south of those are 2 single-family homes. The first single-family home that directly abuts the proposed rezone already has a chain link fence. I don't know if it's necessary to put an additional fence there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any questions?
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Weber. Anyone else from the audience regarding item number 9? Seeing none, I'll look for commission action.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion to approve and a second for item number 9. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair? This seems a lot like the last one with an apartment building going in next to single family, but I'm going to stick with it's a land use issue, and we're on the intersection of an arterial and a collector, and that's where those make sense.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Chair, we appreciate the neighbors coming, the neighborhood association being, first of all, having a neighborhood association. Not every neighborhood in Sioux Falls has a neighborhood association. So to have that active and then to come forward with a recommendation is much appreciated.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approval of item number 9, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, same sign. Item number 9 passes.
Item 10, 6214-2017 rezone from the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District to the RD2 Townhome Residential Suburban District for allowed forms located south of West 5th Street and west of North Valley View Road.
Thank you. This is a 8-acre site. They're wanting to develop 4-plex units in the RD2 zoning classification. And with the RD2, they would have access to the newly constructed North Heron, and then being able to go over to the east and going north to 5th Avenue for 5th Street. The proposed RD2 townhome residential should provide a good transition from the existing manufactured home parks to the south and in the east, and the existing proposed single-family uses to the north. If the rezoning of the property is approved, they can construct fourplexes on the proposed 16 lots. If the rezoning is denied, they will continue to be zoned RS. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Jeff. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Thank you. Is the petitioner here this evening? Good evening. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Kelly Nielsen, Nielsen Construction, 27297 Wetland Road, Harrisburg, South Dakota.
Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, just it's a piece of property that I've owned for, I think it's going on 3 years now. I own majority of the single lots that do not have homeowners in them to the north of the property. We've been trying to be creative and develop this, and we're just struggling because the very bottom where the RS is, that piece, it's not really wide enough for a city street and lots on both sides. So we're trying to figure out a way to accommodate a land use and hit a price point in this neighborhood that this city, some other organizations of the city have approved for some grant money and funds to try to accommodate some of them entry-level home needs as discussed earlier through Joan's information. So that's the purpose of the project, just trying to get some entry-level home pricing and projects out there in the Sioux Falls community.
Very good. Commissioners, any questions for the petitioner? Thank you, sir. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on behalf of item number 10, or excuse me, regarding item number 10? Good evening, sir.
Robert Gaylor, I live at 609 North Daisy Avenue. I looked at it and I do have concerns by going to a higher population density. You're going to increase the traffic on 5th Street. The thing that I looked at is that all the traffic to that property and that entire development has to go through one intersection to get there. That would be 5th Street and Cockatail Avenue. And then for the next 200 feet, there is only the single road. So I have the concern that if you go from a single family to multifamily, that's going to significantly increase the traffic and create a greater possibility of accidents or something like that happens. And then basically I don't have emergency services to my property. The other part that I saw with their planning, where they go through the area to the west here, so that they're driving the entire 5th Street, I do have problems with, okay, at the intersection that you got to come in, we always have a trailer sitting there because somebody feels that's his parking spot. We have vehicles from, the trailer park there. They come out and are parked on 5th Street because they're not allowed to park on the street within the trailer court. So we're already congesting 5th Street. We have a contractor on 5th Street to the west there that feels that part of the street is his parking lot. He has his equipment, several trailers, vehicles, and all this there. So we already have congestion there. And so now we're going to increase the traffic and, create further problems. Just coming from my place, my neighbor to the north almost had an accident on the corner between Daisy and 5th because you can't see with all the equipment sitting there and this type of thing. So I'm looking there from that standpoint. We need another access point if we're going to, if we're going to change what we're we're planning to put there, we need to get another access point. So that if something happens, we still have access to emergency services. The other concern that I have is that it's basically, with the pedestrian traffic that we have coming in and out of the area. You have kids going to school or to the school bus and that. Currently, there's a sidewalk on the north side of 5th Street from Valley View Road to Mallard Place, and then it stops. And if you're continuing on west, you have to walk in the street until you get to Cornflower to get to another sidewalk on the north side, or you can go to Cockatiel Avenue and then cross 5th Street to get to a sidewalk. But still, you're still crossing the street. There's no stop signs or any type of traffic control there. So I mean, I look at the safety of our children, when you're going to do something like that. So I mean, if we rezone it, we need to address the problems that it's going to exasperate.
Good.
I'm done.
Commissioners, any questions? Thank you. Just real quick, I would like to have staff come back up and talk about the traffic comments that are in the staff report, please.
Certainly. 5th Street's a collector, and it shall collect all the street traffic from this neighborhood. As we've kind of already mentioned today, when I talked to this gentleman before the meeting, it should generally have 5,000 to 10,000 vehicles a day, about 5,000, so the traffic is expected to increase. I understand the concern that it seems to be generating to the east, but if there would be an issue to the east, not only would emergency services take care of that, but Daisy goes to the north. So there is a way to get out, as well as right now the reason why it doesn't go to the west is because there's no money being generated out of the subdivision. There's no reason to go west because there's no activity. If there's activity in construction, then you can maybe build the road to go to the west. So at this point, the design standards with safety and traffic engineering will really dictate if the traffic gets generated and there's enough vehicles, then they'll start looking to go west.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Jeff.
Mr. Chair, one other question. One of the other items he brought up was the construction trailers and stuff parked on the street. Are there regulations for how long they can be parked in a spot, or is that?
Yes, there are, and police take care of the vehicles on the street. The City of Sioux Falls, or our department, planning and zoning, they take care of service vehicles on your private property. Okay. So if they're stored on the street, then it's a police issue. If they're parked on the street, they can be parked on the street, just as, I can't remember if it was Kurt or John, maybe it was Steve, asked about down on the previous site. Can you park on Brett? Absolutely. You can park on Collectors, and people do. That's their parking spot.
That was just to give him where to call if you have issues with people parking there.
I've already called the police several times, as well as made the complaint to the planning department, and it's basically a circle.
Very good. Anyone else like to speak related to item number 10? Please come forward, state your name and address. And new bullets that we probably haven't heard yet would be great.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Steve Stutson. I live at 6509 West 5th Street. Recently moved into the area 3 years ago. During those 3 years, my property value has went up. I'm happy. I did not expect to go from a small, tiny house over by Sioux Valley, Sanford, and then buying my home and wanting to downsize, but I upsized to 3,000 square feet. Some of the things that I've noticed on this, and I have a major concern about, is North Huron Place. When I look at it, I don't know how that road's going to go through there. I don't think there's enough room, because to the south of that, no, on the bottom part, right where the townhomes are, okay, you have North Huron Place, right?
East and west.
Right. Got it. Going east and west. When you look at the south, you have Pine Ridge Meadows, which is a trailer court. Kind of a little tight back there to put another road. There's also a drainage ditch in there that I've noticed. There's also the railroad that's there. Some concerns I even have, as the other gentleman mentioned, about the trailer being parked there. It is what it is. People can park anywhere they'd like to, and they have so long to park. I understand that. But the concern that I have is this addition is Meadow Ridge. According to the covenant of Meadow Ridge, it has to be single-family homes in lots 9 to 15, block 10. Lot 1 of block 13 must be a ranch-style dwelling and should have fully enclosed surface level flooring, not less than 1,000 square feet, multi-level, so on and so forth. The lots zoned for twin homes, which my lot is number 11. After you go past 10, I noticed from originally when I moved into that area, those lots were bigger. The original designer of the area wanted the lots to be big so that there was a lot of space between homes. And that's what drew me to this area. I looked outside of Sioux Falls because I wanted that space between the home. I feel that getting it close in there, it's like, hey, let me borrow your coffee cup. I'm touching their door, it's so close. And I had concerns about that, and then when I looked at the lots, to me it looks like the lots got divided up because they're supposed to be ranch, and then after so many are supposed to be ranch, then it's supposed to go to twin home. And I really enjoyed, when I heard that, that was one of the big things why me and my wife went ahead and purchased this house. With this going in here, I agree also too that we're going to have traffic issues. We already have snow issues in the area. It's like we're the area that Sioux Falls forgot. We literally, after a snow alert, have to call the city to come plow the snow because they forget us. Now that's pretty sad that they should know that 5th Street goes all the way down. You bring in these homes, that's going to increase the traffic. I know down the road, once it does get developed, 5th Street is supposed to go down to La Mesa. I understand that. But right now, this coming year, this summer, the city is supposed to put under construction West 5th Street from Marion Road to Valley View to update the road and resurface it and stuff. And they're supposed to do the same thing to West 3rd at the same time. Well, the other concern that I have with that, too, is we have a school there. It's right in the area. It's close. Traffic is going to increase. The addition that they have, Block A, is Meadow Ridge. Meadow Ridge, that does not follow our covenant that we have with the county. I understand the city just plans, and this is what can it be zoned as. But we have a covenant, and that covenant does state ranch or twin home. This is not ranch. This is not a twin home. This is a townhome. And I just don't see the feasibility of putting that road in there. I don't think there's the room there. I really don't. How is it going to affect me and my property value? Is my property value going to stagnate and stay where it is, or is it going to go down? I upgraded. I didn't downgrade. I upgraded to a 3,000 square foot home. Never thought I would ever be able to own a home like that in my life. I make $14 an hour. And believe me, if you make $14 an hour and you work hard, you can get what you want. You just have to work for it. And I'm opposed to it. It's not the design of the area. It's not following what our covenant is. Now, the other two that are on Cocktail Avenue, that's part of Hayward and Meadows. I don't have much to say about that. Not my addition. I'm Meadow Ridge. We like our area. It is like we're out in the country, and it's peaceful out there. We have kids out there, but it's just coming to a point where I would rather see a single-family home, and I think people would take more pride in their single-family home instead of a townhome. Now, yes, I can go ahead and say, hey, Deal Construction, I'm going to buy 4 of those units. City isn't going to tell me, no, I can't rent them. I can rent them. So I have no control over that. But I do have control of what we have in our covenant for that area. And if that goes in as part of Meadow Ridge, that violates our covenant. And if they want to do that, well, then they better take it out of Meadow Ridge and put it as Hayward and Meadows, and not as Meadow Ridge, because I'm falling back on the covenant. That's my major concern, is that. Any questions, guys?
Commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Stutson.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience like to present new testimony related to item number 10? Thank you. Seeing none, I will look for commission action.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion to approve and a second for item number 10. Discussion, please.
As for not having enough space for the road, well, the city's engineering is gonna say, yes, that will be a big enough road, otherwise you won't be able to do it. I don't see any reason why this wouldn't work. So I'm in favor of it.
Mr. Chair? I'll echo that too. I look at it as a land use, and Twin Homes buffering a mobile home park from single family is kind of the way those transitions work. I would also say the city doesn't regulate private agreements, so the covenants, that's between you and whoever else builds there. So that, I don't think, impacts our decisions at all. So I appreciate you bringing it up, but that's something you and the guy who's developing it will have to kind of work out.
And my understanding about that is that they are supposed to approach the county on that if there has to be a change, because it's in our covenant.
That's between you and them.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second for approval of item number 10. All in favor of approval of item number 10, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Item number 10 is approved.
Item 11, 6224-2017, conditional use permit for on-sale alcohol within 500 feet of a sensitive land use located at the northeast corner of West 6th Street and Northwest Avenue.
Thank you. I'm struggling with saying this is an existing gas station on the north. It is an existing gas station. It's existing vacant gas station, or currently not occupied. Is that better?
Sure.
On the northeast corner, it's a 1.23 acre site that they would like to reopen and have a gas station, gas and convenience store, including a small video lottery casino. The residential land uses are to the east, and through our review, we believe that the external effects should be directed away from these districts, which are part of the conditional review standards. West Avenue is considered an arterial street, was the frontage road, and based upon the review of the external effects, the parking, the pumps, the store entrance, all to the west away from the residents, this could be, we recommend this for approval. We did receive one written notice from the property owner to the southeast, correct? Yes. Yes, it was the southeast. We had one written request Opposed on the southeast, just basically from the nature of the neighborhood. They didn't want to see another liquor establishment in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions for staff, commissioners? Very good. Is the petitioner here this evening? Good evening, sir.
Evening. Paul Reynolds with RCM Services, 4402 South Technology. The intent that the applicant has is basically refurbishing the existing gas station that was there. It has been inhabited, well, uninhabited probably, I think, for about a year and a half, something like that. We're going to be renovating the outside of the facility, basically upgrading it. New facilities on the inside. We're adding additional bathrooms. And on the south side of the building itself, there was an old storeroom. There's a current garage door that's there as well. We're going to be renovating that back area there, and there's going to be a small casino that's going to be put back there. In that casino, there will be beer that will be sold. That'll be part of the casino program that they do have. And within the gas station itself, they will have off-sale liquor as well. Questions?
Commissioners? Any questions for the petitioner? Very good. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak related to item number 11? Good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name is Dave Gribble, representing Shopping Cart, address 2500 North Oak Road, Brandon. I spend 16 hours a day in Sioux Falls, so I forget my actual address. I have a history with this location. We ran it for many, many years, and because I was young and dumb and ran without a lease, this property was sold out from under me. And what goes around comes around. You can see the condition of the property right now. So I have a lot of great times. That was one of my favorite stores. Got along great with the neighbors. And I'd like to go back, and it needs a lot of work. It's been run down really bad. And as far as the alcohol, that's really the issue here. And Shopping Cart's been selling alcohol responsibly in Sioux Falls for 50 years. Not 100% perfect, but nobody in Sioux Falls is, and I stand by my record. It's probably as good as anybody, or probably better than most. The city council knows me very well because they haven't seen me for a long time because I've been doing really good. But I can assure any neighbors that I run a tight ship. I'm a hands-on owner. That's why I'm in Sioux Falls night and day. And there won't be any issues. If this is a bar application, I wouldn't have shown up. I'd have been too embarrassed. But I don't run bars, and this won't be. This would be a quiet convenience store. The casino would, you know what they are. They're small and they're quiet, and we'll make sure it's run that way. And there won't be any issues with the park or anything around it. And that's, if that's any concerns, it wouldn't be. Again, I have many, many years of history in that location, so I know what I'm up against. So. Thank you.
Very good. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Grevelos? Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else from the audience that would like to speak related to item number 11? Good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name is Dan Brentro, 7420 Ballymore Circle, and then I work at 1201 West Russell. This particular site is on my running route, so over lunch I come down the east side of Cobble Lake and then back up the west side, even in the dead of winter, and I've every day run past this and see the sign out front that it's for sale, and during that point of the run think of all the things that you could do with this facility. And so with great interest I saw the yellow signs come up that this was being rezoned for an on-sale alcohol permit. The scope of this map does not show you how close this is to Cobble Lake, the park. The sidewalk there is just about 6 seconds worth of running time and about 20 seconds worth of walking time to the very sidewalk that connects you with all of the fishing, the playing that happens at Cobble Lake. The particular use that's being proposed, we're not to look at the specifics that are being proposed. It's whether or not on-sale alcohol is appropriate for this location within 500 feet of a sensitive area. And there's a lot of sensitive things there. It's across the street from a park, from Burnside Park. It's 60 feet away from Colville Lake, which is, I think, one of the crown jewels of Sioux Falls as far as the public park system. I was surprised to see that somebody was trying to sell, to get an on-sale alcohol permit license for this. I'm not, I guess, not a neighbor that lives nearby, but it was something that I thought I wanted to come and share with you. And I got to tell you, during the first 90 minutes of sitting here, I thought maybe it's time to just go home and let somebody else stand up and say this. But I don't see anybody else here to do that. And so I don't know. I know you guys have a hard job and people complain a lot. I don't know if this is the right location for this, but you don't see it from the map about how close this really is to the park. And if you don't get the scope of that from the map, maybe you want to table it and go take a look and see if this is the right place to start serving alcohol. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was driving south on West, and right at the same intersection, somebody came out of another casino that's nearby. It's about another block farther down. And my first thought was, do they really plan on walking in front of my car? I was coming at 30 miles an hour and slowed down a little bit and thought, no, there's no way that'll happen. And that's exactly what happened. Somebody stumbled into the street drunk out of that other casino and then made it back on the sidewalk before I got there. There's a lot of single-family housing off to the west there in that triangular area near Burnside. I just don't know. If I was a neighbor, I would be concerned about this. As somebody who's running this every day, I'm concerned about this. As somebody who brings their kids to this park, I'm concerned about this. And I'm not saying don't do it, but I would just give it a lot of scrutiny. And if you can't see it from the map, please go take a look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any questions? Thank you. Anyone else from the audience like to speak regarding item number 11? Seeing none, I will look for commission action.
Make a motion for approval.
How about a second? All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I do agree with the gentleman. This is a street that I am on frequently, as my parents live at Dalrymple, so I drive past that and when I was looking at the signs when I drove by here before, it is really close to Colville. However, the gas station before that sold alcohol, and so it's kind of a difficult situation, or that's what we were, so yeah. So I am empathetic to the gentleman who spoke.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve item number 11. All in favor of approval for item number 11, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, same sign.
Yes.
Just for the record, we'll do the hands. All in favor signify by raising your hand. That's 4. All opposed, 1. 4 to 1, motion passes with our current numbers. Thank you.
Item 12, 6218-2017, alternative site plan for an alternative landscape buffer yard located at 2571 South Westlake Drive.
The project here is Lake Lorraine, and it's an alternative site plan. The applicant for this is Van Buskirk Companies. They originally had this identified as a BCF1 form, in which case with the single family to the south, what was required there was a level B buffer yard. They modified the building use. It is now an RE4, which requires a level D buffer yard because they had already placed their footing and foundation for the building. The lot is narrow. Based on the engineering design standards for parking, they're able to meet what they need, but they can't increase the buffer yard requirement at the parking lot nor at the building. So what they have done in order to at least try to get to a level D is they're providing, I think it's at a 17-foot buffer yard adjacent to the parking lot. They're meeting the 280 landscape units along there, as well as a 6-foot fence and a 2-foot tall berm. Adjacent to the building itself, they are also able to meet the landscape units, but they have a 23-foot buffer in lieu of the 45. At the parking lot area, they can encroach by 10 feet. So instead of 35, again, they're meeting the 17. So it's a little bit difficult, but whether it was a BCF1 or an RE4 form, the exterior of the building doesn't necessarily change. It's the same footprint, it's the same size. They are meeting a retail 1 to 200 for parking, but it's just the description of the buffer yard with the different types of forms. So it does change it to a level D. So I can answer any questions you have.
Commissioners?
Mr. Chair? The buffer yard changes because of the expected increased use or increased traffic or increased flow of people into the building?
Yes, but they were already providing at 1 to 200. Even as the BCF1 form, they were providing it at 1 to 200.
On the parking?
On the parking.
The buffer, though, would be
The buffer then changed from the
distance
level.
and
Yeah,
landscaping stuff because there's, in theory, increased use, right?
right, right. We didn't have any questions or calls, any concerns, nothing. Did we hear from neighbors to the south? So.
Okay.
Very good. Any other questions for staff? Thank you, Diane. Is the petitioner here this evening?
Good evening, Chad Van Busker Companies, 5800 South Remington Place. Just like to thank staff for the report and the recommendation for approval. Here to answer any questions tonight. I think maybe, not to be repetitive, maybe the salient points are the building has not changed. What the primary driver of this is really the tenants that came to us after we got the building developed and we started marketing it. Exterior, again, shape and parking lot's all the same. We always try to make sure we have plenty of parking for our facilities, and as things develop out there, it's happening fast. It looks more like an office building than anything else than a commercial type of structure. It doesn't have storefronts. It'll have a shared lobby, an interior elevator. It's a 2-story structure, 2 stairs internally that are shared by all the common tenants. So a major driver of this is a tenant that we had come to us looking to get on the 2nd floor up there, enjoy the views of the lake. It's actually a salon type use, so it's a little higher density than what the BCF usage allowed for, so that drove us to trying to change our usage to the higher density use. But I think our primary user there is still going to be office is really our expectation. Again, it's not going to work for a lot of retailers. This is kind of a unique situation where it's a high-end salon trying to get up there and take advantage of the views and a little bit luxurious environment, I guess, for a salon. So that's not your everyday salon that you're going to see looking for this type of use. So anyway, that's our take on it, and any questions, happy to answer.
Commissioners, any questions for the petitioner? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak related to item number 12? Good evening.
Hi, my name's David Jansen, and I live at 5004 West 34th Street. I've mainly just had some questions about, I guess the way I read it, I didn't know if it was going to be encroaching at all on our land. No. And then there's a fence replacement and the definition of the berm. I'm assuming the berm would be like a retaining wall? No. No. 2-foot high berm. So just a...
And a 6-foot. It's a 2-foot high berm and a 6-foot high fence. It's not a replacement fence for what you might have. Their fence has to be on their property, not on yours.
Okay. So nothing about our property is changing?
Nothing.
Okay, that's all I needed. Thanks.
Great.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else that would like to speak related to item number 12? Seeing none, I will look for commission action.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
It's a little unusual. Normally, we go the other direction. We improve on our buffer yards. Not that this is deproving, but normally it is, but I think it's a good fit.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments, discussion? All right, all in favor of approval of item number 12, please signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed, same sign. Item number 12 is approved. Any other business?
Move to adjourn?
Mr. Chair,
Oh,
I
sorry.
just had one comment or request, and that is, as the sitting planning commission, wanted to suggest that we could send a sympathy letter to the Netley family expressing our condolences and great appreciation for Steve's many years of services in the planning area.
Thank you, John. That'd be just fine. Thank you. And I heard a motion to adjourn and a second.
And a second.
All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
We are adjourned. Sioux Falls, make it a great night.